Hello, YouTube. Welcome in another week on the Alliance. My name is Derek Peterson. I'm with Saturday Out West. This guy, I always point in the wrong direction. This guy is Spenser Davis with Saturday Road. Welcome back,
How's it
Spencer.
going?
We're going to talk about FPI this week because it came out last week and it sucked. So
It's really bad.
there's just a lot of weird places, but there's like one super weird place that everybody started with that I think we want to start with here. And that's why the hell is Texas sitting at sixth? We're doing this again with Texas. Texas is back. Is there any justifiable reason to place Texas sixth in a college football ranking right now?
Not that I can see. I mean, they've got some continuity coming back, right? Like most, I think, Sark is back, right? But they're going to have a new quarterback in Quinn Ewers, who is very talented, right? And they even as Texas has gone through this decade of hell since Colt McCoy graduated, they've recruited very well. It still means something to go to Texas, especially, in that state. Those kids still grow up rooting for Texas. And so, like, they're very talented. But man, you really have to believe in Quinn Ewers, I think, to project Texas as a top 10 team. And it's crazy that, like, this isn't Colin Cowherd or somebody just projecting like, or predicting a big season for Texas this year, because this is the year. This is a computer model that is supposed to be objective, right? In a lot of ways, and they have Texas at number 6. And I want to give some credence to that. But at the same time, ESPN's other model, S&P Plus by Bill Connolly, has Texas 33rd. And I trust S&P Plus way more. So where do you come at this from?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think, this reads like a power ranking or like a way too early human poll. And I don't really know how to square that, because there are teams that you can look at like lower down the rankings where you can look at them and say, yeah, this is definitely numbers based. And I can see, where some context or, where some minutia is being glossed over because numbers can lie, but not often, but they can. But like Texas, it baked into FPI, they've got, percentage chance to win 6 games, likelihood you win your conference, percentage chance to make the playoffs. Texas has a 21% chance to make the playoffs. Like let's not just gloss over the fact that they have won more than 5 games in 5 games against Big 12 opponents in a season one time since the McCoys left Austin. One time they've won more than 5 games in a Big 12 conference slate. They've got a better chance to make the playoffs than Notre Dame and Oklahoma and Michigan and Utah. But I mean, even moving past Texas, Pitt at number 9. Pitt at number 9?
No, I'll defend Pitt at number 9. I mean, they got a few.
They lost their Heisman quarterback and they lost their offensive coordinator.
They got Keaton Slovis, who's very good, and I think that people at Pitt believe that they upgraded an offensive coordinator. I mean, that OC had been there for a long time, and it took him 4 or 5 years to make Kenny Pickett look good. They still have. They have frankly one of the best receiving corps in the country. I think having Pitt, Pitt might win the ACC again. I wouldn't be shocked at all if that happened.
If Keaton Slovis stayed at USC, would USC be number 9? Would they be top 10?
I mean, again, these models are supposed to be objective, right? Like, USC has other issues like on the offensive line and the defensive line and elsewhere. But yeah,
well, I guess I'm just asking, like, is Keaton Slovis a quarterback and a perceived upgrade in terms of offensive play calling enough to, stave off what most people expect to be a step back from Pitt? I mean, especially if Clemson is better.
I have not dug deep into Pitt's schedule necessarily, but if they won 10 games, I would not be shocked. And I bet they win at least 9.
And then you've got Auburn and LSU at 10 and 11 ahead of Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Either of those teams could finish 4th or 5th in their division, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of competition, right? I mean, and here's one team that I'll throw out that I think is maybe a little bit underrated at 18 is Miami. I mean, I'm super high on Miami this year. FPI has them at 8.5 wins. That could get to 10 pretty easily, I think.
Where is Ole Miss in this? I don't even
They're
see them.
17th. They're 17th.
They're 7. Okay, there they are. Okay, they're 2. Who do you like better, knee jerk right now, LSU or Ole Miss?
Ole Miss. I think LSU is going to be a mess for a little while.
Yeah. And I mean, this is, I think this is where both of us are just hung up on FPI is the LSU thing then, is it Brian Kelly? And if so, how do you quantify a different coach? I would love to know like FPI's stance on this.
LSU is another school that just has always recruits well, right? Like they're always going to be in the top 5, top 7, if not top 3. And so like they're always going to recruit better than Ole Miss and are probably a more talented team than Ole Miss. But yeah, I mean, first year coach with Brian Kelly, I don't think we know too much about their quarterback situation in terms of like how good they're going to be. And yeah, man, I would not trust LSU this season. I think Brian Kelly's a good coach. He was, Notre Dame fans are happy that he's gone at this point, I think. But he also won, had more 10-win seasons there than anybody else in history. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive. So, 7.7 wins for LSU, according to FPI. I would probably take the under. I would probably, I think 7-5 would be a reasonable first season for them in that division. I mean, it's just that their schedule is going to be so tough, right?
Again, I mean, they finished 35th in Sagarin last year. They finished 65th in S&P Plus. They're on the low end for returning national production. And I saw just today, as we're recording this on a Monday, they lost their second leading returning rusher to the transfer portal. So, I mean, guys are continuing. I mean, it's going to happen. It's spring.
Yeah.
They opened 45th in S&P Plus projections for 22, and they're at 11th in FPI. I guess one of the big takeaways was that, especially, once you get past the top 4, because I think like Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson as a top 4 is pretty bulletproof. It's hard to, pick holes at that. But once you get to like
the
bottom,
ratings reflect that, by the way. Like,
yes, there's a big gap between.
There's a big gap. Like Clemson is at 23, and then Notre Dame is 5th at 17.5. Like it's a huge. Like the gap between 4 and 5 is virtually the same as between 4 and 1.
Yeah, but then once you get 6 through 10 range, like. And even then a little bit on into the rankings, like the difference between FPI and S&P Plus, which is an in-house thing for ESPN. It's their thing. Yeah. The difference in teams is in some instances stark. And that's really interesting to me. Did you find the same thing?
Yeah. I mean, there's like I said, Texas at 6, or is it 33? And I guess I just don't understand why FPI is overrating some of these teams, because like Texas doesn't have a ton of returning production either. Like Texas is 53rd in returning production according to ESPN's numbers. And, that's weighted in a way that, values things like, the trenches and quarterback play and receivers. So yeah, it's baffling to see that big of a jump. And then you look at a team like North Carolina State, who, again, I think is a team that has a chance to win the ACC this year. And they're all the way down at 26 in FPI, even though they have Devin Leary coming back, who's one of the best returning quarterbacks in the country. And they should have won 10 games last year if one of the teams from your conference didn't back out an hour before the game. So I believe it was UCLA, right?
That's going to remain like a salty sticking point.
Oh, it's
for years and years and years and years.
It's even worse because NC State has not won. Like 10 games is like a mental barrier for NC State, and they were finally going to do it. They never win 10 games. They always win 9 games. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think NC State had that one covered.
I was going to ask, but I was going to ask a top 25 FPI team that you would stump for as being a team that's not in the top 10 right now, but might finish in the top 10.
Miami. I'm all in on Miami this year.
Okay.
I think they're awesome. Their receivers is going to be a question mark.
So Miami getting booed in the first quarter of its spring game didn't turn you off?
No, that didn't bother me at all because, one, their best pass catcher is a tight end in Will Mallory, who didn't even play. Their second best pass catcher is a running back named Jalen Knighton, who didn't play. Now, is it a problem that they don't have great receivers? Maybe. I mean, Xavier Respro did have 6 catches for 60 yards or something like that. He looks pretty good. Like they're going to be fine. Like Tyler Van Dyke is, I think, a dark horse Heisman candidate. And if that ends up being true, like if he is, in the top 6 or 7 Heisman vote getters in the country, Miami probably wins that division. And I think would be in the top 10 nationally. How many yards do you think he's going to throw against Bethune-Cookman on September 3rd?
350.
I'd go higher. I mean,
350 because they're going to put up a ton of points and he's going to be out.
He's going to. I mean, the question is how many yards can he throw in a half against air, right? I mean, it's 350 to 400.
Yeah, 350.
I mean, look, the schedule sets up pretty well for Miami, right? Like they do end the year with Clemson on the road and then Pitt at home in the last week. And they also play Florida State in November, but that game's at home. The first 6-8 weeks of the schedule, very manageable. They do have to go to College Station, which is going to be a hell of a game, I think. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. September 17th at Texas A&M, that's going to be – I think we're going to learn a lot about both of those teams on that day. I hope that's a game day game or at least a prime time.
Can I give you a Pac-12 team that I will stump for?
Yes. Yeah.
Utah. Utah's at 15.
Well, that's easy, right? I mean,
Utah's at 15. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean,
like
Cameron Rising is back, right? I mean,
it's not it's not sexy to pick Utah, the Utes, Kyle Whittingham, who's been there for a long time. But look at Utah's schedule and find me a loss.
I mean, yeah, I think that I think they might be USC by like 28 in this first year.
Like the time to play Florida is the first week for a new coach. Like that game's going to be close. I think that game's going to be good. It's also at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. I think that'll be a good game. But Utah,
environment.
To get Florida right out of the gates, I think is advantage Utah. I mean, they'll have
that game will be interesting because FBI is favoring Utah by about 3 points on a neutral field. And it's in Gainesville. So yeah, it'll be maybe Utah -1 maybe. It's going to be close. That's going to be a fun game.
When you move on past that, where's the loss on the schedule? They play USC at home. They're not going to lose to Oregon, I don't think. I think this is going to be a team that's going to challenge to make it into the college football playoff. FPI gives them a 4.9% chance to get into the playoff. If you give me any kind of number around that I can bet on, I will bet on it with all of my money.
Look, the problem with Utah is that they're, in terms of a playoff bet, is that they're not going to be able to overcome a loss.
They are in a perceived weaker conference. Yes. And I mean, if let's say Utah loses to UCLA, they really need to run the table in every other game, and they probably need Florida to win 9 games for them to have a serious amount of respect from the playoff committee. And what's interesting is FBI views the Pac-12 as a super weak conference. They have 8 of the 10 easiest strength of schedule, I guess lowest ranked strength of schedules at the Power 5 level. Pac-12 teams do. So there's just zero respect. I mean, they got to earn respect at the Pac-12,
right?
But
that's
the FBI doesn't like, and it really, really likes the SEC. Surprise.
Some of that's recruiting rankings, which the SEC and the Big Ten dominate every single year in terms of who's at the top for the most part. I mean, there's sometimes you'll see an Oklahoma or Texas or Oregon, UCLA or not UCLA, USC, Clemson, those types of teams will sneak in there. But for the most part, it's the SEC and the Big Ten, and so that's who these preseason models are going to value.
That's fair.
I'm going to wrap it there. I think we covered a lot of ground there.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't want to talk about Texas anymore. No more Texas. They're going to win. They're going to win 6 games, and we won't be talking about them past October 15th.
Well, by the way, I believe they play Alabama in the first week of the season.
They do. Like,
So good luck with that. Like, you don't want to be the first team playing Alabama after they lost the national title. It's the second week of the season. But like Alabama might be so pissed off that they injure half of Texas's offensive line in that game.
how many yards does Bryce Young throw for in that game?
380.
441.
441.
441. Yeah, he's throwing on air. He'll get it in the first half, throwing on air. And they'll pull him out.
All right, let's cut it off there. We're going to be back next week talking all sorts of stuff. We're going to have some win total previews as well here in the next